All right, right on, right on. We're on. We're on. We are back. Welcome to Disco Acid Cult TV. We're talking about The Devil's Rejects by Rob Zombie. Uh, just as usual, we'll fucking get right into it. So when was the first time you saw The Devil's Rejects?
So I saw it on DVD. I'm pretty sure, it was a while after I seen House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, I didn't just go. I mean, I was super young, but I didn't just go out and watch it as soon as it was available. For some reason, I remember waiting a little while and then seeing it on DVD. And like I was telling you before, I really like it a lot more. A lot more parts I like than House of a Thousand Corpses. I may even say that I like it totally more than House of a Thousand Corpses. I just think it was put together a lot better. I mean, Rob Zombie as a director was obviously way more experienced at this point. You could see it in the characters too, like how well they were. I'd like to say they were like more matured and like more likable in this than House of Thousand Corpses, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I saw it on DVD, and then last year they actually did. They put it on like in theater as a special Halloween thing, and I went with my friend and seen that. It was just cool. I don't know if they do that by you. Like they'll randomly, like for Halloween, they'll do like a week of like classic horror movies like in the theater, like The Shining or like House of Thousand Corpses, and they'll just do like one or two nights in the theater, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's two times I've seen it more than two times, but yeah, those are the first couple times I've seen it.
Right on, right on. The first time I saw it, again, like I am with most of these horror movies that I've gotten really into, was fairly recently. Again, probably during COVID time. I know I watched House of a Thousand Corpses first, and when I got into House of a Thousand Corpses, I had kind of forgotten that The Devil's Rejects was the sequel. I know I told you the story about when I was in fifth grade, and I was a Christian school student before I was ever allowed to watch horror movies. I heard a commercial on the radio in the car with my mom, a commercial for The Devil's Rejects, and just being very intrigued by the name. So, especially a Christian school kid, when I heard the term Devil's Rejects, I legitimately thought this was about people that went to hell and like were too bad for Satan, like Satan didn't want them.
Right.
So, then when I first saw, like I said, I'd seen House of a Thousand Corpses, and then whenever I watch a movie, the first thing I do is I go to the Wikipedia page and I start getting obsessed with the production of the movie. So then I learned quickly, like, oh, Devil's Rejects is a sequel to it. So I watched it, and yeah, it's hard for me to say. I usually say that, like, I personally enjoy House of a Thousand Corpses more just because it's more fun, and there's really no fun to be had. Like, well, there's a lot of fun to be had in The Devil's Rejects, but when the scenes that are not fun are really not fun, but not fun in a way that I like as a horror fan. Like the scenes that are like, you watch them and you're like, oh, I need to take a fucking shower because this is terrible. I'm a bad person for watching this. That's what I want in my horror movies. Um, I always say horror movies aren't scary because we're all adults and we know that movies aren't real. So the feelings I look for when I watch horror are feelings of like dread, discomfort, hopelessness. Like that's what I want to feel when I'm watching horror movies. I want to feel like I'm not going to make it out alive or something bad's going to happen because, we're not 8 years old anymore. This stuff's not actually scary in the sense that you would say, oh, it's a scary movie. So,
Right.
that's kind of why I like it. It is super uncomfortable at some parts. It's not as fun as House of a Thousand Corpses, but it's the kind of not fun that you want. What do you
Definitely.
have for? Do you have any like opening notes, just like general thoughts? Because I got a few things.
Yeah, I got a few things. But I want to just touch on what you said. Like, yeah, definitely more brutal for sure, which I enjoy. Now, I like both ends of the spectrum. Like, I like the dark comedy, black comedy type thing, like that was House of a Thousand Corpses. But I also really like you said, like something that makes you like kind of squirm in your skin, and that's Devil's Rejects for sure. There was really no, like you said, no fun like quirkiness to it like there was the first movie. Like I said earlier, man, I just appreciate the fact that the characters are more likable in here. I think that even the way they look, like Otis, like looks better with the beard, and he just looks more badass and just more like I don't know, more like terrifying than he did in the first movie. I feel like, Sherry Moon played, her acting is definitely better here than House of a Thousand Corpses, and Sid Haig's basically the same. Never really changed as far as like acting in this role. But let me see what other notes I got. I just put the soundtrack to this movie is fucking phenomenal, dude. I mean, you cannot even. There's not one song that that is unlikable. Like, kudos to Rob Zombie for the awesome soundtrack. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Just the way they filmed it, I think, was cool. There was definitely more like the way they panned the camera and flashed the different scenes. It had like kind of like the filming style had like a Natural Born Killers vibe to it. To me, that's, if you get what I mean, like with the flashing colors and like the way they kind of slid from scene to scene. I don't know. It was just put together really well. Yeah, my notes basically just go into the plot. So what do you got?
I have, I'm gonna rant here for a minute. I got a few things. So the first bullet point I wrote was basically what I said about how it's not as fun. It's kind of more torturous than House of a Thousand Corpses. But the note started off with, this movie I wrote is generally accepted by the fan base as Rob Zombie's magnum opus. Everyone says it's his best movie. That's when I wrote, I think I personally enjoy House of a Thousand Corpses more, but I won't argue with anyone who says this is his best movie. Like, I will never be the guy fighting against people saying this is his best. I think story-wise, it certainly is his best. I wrote it's basically a violent western, like with just kind of horror film style music and the violent scenes. Like, some people could even argue it's not a horror movie. I mean, it's just like a very graphically violent western movie. Um, Obviously, I would still say it's a horror movie, just with a lot of Western influence. I think Rob Zombie made a joke. It was either in like an interview or one of the director's commentaries where he said he felt like he kind of bamboozled Lionsgate. He's like, they wanted a horror movie, and I basically snuck in this Western movie, you know, and put it under like a code of horror. One thing I think is interesting is that everybody loves to point out that House of a Thousand Corpses, storyline wise, is just Texas Chainsaw Massacre with like the Rob Zombie coat. This movie is literally Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and nobody ever talks about it. So the general plot in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is that a relative of victims from the first movie, who also happens to be in law enforcement, comes hunting for the bad guys and kind of loses his mind in the process. Devil's Rejects, a relative of a victim in the first movie, comes hunting for the bad guys and starts losing his mind in the process. So I think that's interesting. And the Bill Moseley connection. Bill Moseley is in both
And
movies.
is ironically a sheriff. It was Dennis Hopper played the sheriff in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and then you got Wydell. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Rob Zombie definitely knows how to use his influences, which I like. That's the kind. If I was going to make movies, I'd want to make movies. That are very blatantly inspired by other movies too. That's how I would do it. I mean, it's kind of Quentin Tarantino-ish. A lot of people even accuse Quentin Tarantino of like ripping off other movies. I don't think so. I think it's 2024. Movies have been being made for over 100 years. Same with music. Like, everything has been written and done. Like, all you can really do is kind of assemble your influences in a different way, which is what I think these people do. So I like it. Of course, I had to write about how the soundtrack is absolutely goated. I wrote, this might be my favorite soundtrack of any movie. This movie introduced me to a lot of good 70s bands. Basically, this movie introduced me to Joe Walsh. I always knew the Eagles, but I never really was kind of like familiar with Joe Walsh as a solo act. Joe Walsh, James Gang, Steely Dan, Elvin Bishop, the Allman Brothers Band. Of course, I knew of most of these bands, just never got fully into them until I heard them pop up in this movie. There's not a bad song in the movie.
Exactly.
I wrote, it's a perfect curation of music that really enhances the movie and helps bring you into the hot and dirty Texas backdrop of the movie. Cinematographer Phil Parmet, I think it's Parmet, Parmet. I think Rob Zombie's a genius when it comes to hiring guys to make the movie look the way he wants. Phil Parmet was like a documentary film cinematographer. So he shot concert films. He shot Led Zeppelin's The Song Remains the Same, and he shot Frank Zappa's Baby Snakes. So Rob said he wanted this to kind of look like one of those like true crime documentaries like he always likes. And so he went out and got a guy that makes fucking documentaries. Like it's, there's no beating around the bush there. It's genius. Otis, the character, like you mentioned, he looks good with the beard. This is my favorite version of Otis. This is he's like angry the whole movie. I'm gonna jump ahead way too far right here. I'm even gonna go to Three from Hell. There's two scenes that are pretty much exactly the same, and just the way Otis delivers the line is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. So in Three from Hell, when they're in the warden's house and they've got the family all held at gunpoint, and that clown knocks on the door, and Otis says, "Who the fuck is that?" He says it kind of like it's not a big deal, like he's saying, "Who the fuck is that?" In this movie, The Devil's Rejects, when they're in the hotel room and they have the family at gunpoint and the roadie knocks on the door, Otis says, "Who the fuck is that?" And he's very angry. And it's like the perfect comparison. In this movie, he's on a mission. So House of a Thousand Corpses, I think Otis is he's kind of quirky. He's kind of all artist, he's at home, he's in his element, he's just doing his thing, he's got nothing to worry about. In this movie, he's on the run, and one wrong move and he's going to prison. So he's angry, he's on a mission, he's not fucking around. Three from Hell, we see him kind of calm down a lot, I think, because he's already done time in prison. So he's probably thinking, well, fuck it, if I get caught, no big deal, I go back to prison. But in this movie, yeah, I like angry on a mission Otis Driftwood. I love Otis and Baby. I love their constant fighting. There's the scene where Baby's getting out of the car and Baby's like, "Fuck you," and it's like, "Fuck," there's fuck you, back and forth. It's like perfect brother and sister fighting. And it's funny when you take those characteristics, like the way that I might argue with my brother when we were teenagers, but you put them on these like murderous psychopaths. It's hilarious. And then just more of that, I wrote the way the antagonists interact with each other is like so charming and entertaining. And then I bring up the fact that in the scene where they're arguing about getting ice cream, it's like so fun and charming to watch them argue about ice cream that you pretty much forget about the fact that you just watched Otis rape a woman at gunpoint like 15, 10, 20 minutes prior. It's
Right.
it's ridiculous, dude. It's really good writing from Rob Zombie, I think. So people that talk about how Rob Zombie's writing is like his weak point, I think that's not true. Nobody's gonna make you forget a rape scene in like 20 minutes like he did. It might have even been under 20 minutes, but it's genius, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes you, it's funny. Like, that's a good observation because, you go from the rape scene to, Tutti fucking Fruity. And then it almost makes you like want to like them in that scene. Like when they're like joking around, like, I think I see some fucking ice cream in my future. And like they're just being so funny and quirky. And like you said, just less than 20 minutes ago, there's a rape scene. I just think it's, you want to almost like them in that point, in that scene, but yet, we really should be hating them for what they are, but you want to you want to like them. But yeah, it's great writing by him, man. It really is.
Yeah, in the I didn't get a chance to watch it before this stream. I've watched it plenty of times though. The DVD copy I have of Devil's Rejects. I mean, I have multiple, but one of them I have. It comes with that documentary. I think it's called 30 Days in Hell. It's like the making of the movie. And I think it's multiple hours long. It might be like 2 or 3 hours. But there's a specific part where Rob is talking to his like team, like other producers and photographer or cinematographers and whatever. And he literally says, we need to find a way to make these characters lovable, even though they're like terribly fucked up into these horrible things. And yeah, that's like the draw of the movie is that you kind of start to like these characters and you're like, wait a minute. Like, actually, I don't know how I feel about that. So, all right, that's what we got for opening. I'm just going to dive into the plot. Same as usual. I have the plot. I try to do it in bullet points. So just whenever jump in if you got to say something about it.
Sure, yeah, I got some stuff.
Right on.
Oh shit, what happened? Sorry.
No, you're good. All right, so we start by looking at photos of some of the victims of our antagonist while a narrator tells us that the police are searching for them. The narrator also tells us the current body count of the Firefly family is over 75. So I wrote, we're definitely not skimping in the murder department here. Next, we watch Tiny drag the body of a dead girl through some woods until he sees police cars with their lights on speeding down the road. Um, I think that's kind of a perfect like opening scene. Like you know what you're in for when the first scene is like this monster dragging a dead girl through the woods. Like, and she's naked, of course. It's got to be a naked dead girl. Like it's you know what you're getting into. There's no he's not pulling any punches here. We jump to the Firefly families. I have Firefly family written down so much, and this is going to trip me up every time. We jump to the Firefly family's house and see this is where the police are going. I wrote, we have to mention that it's a completely different house than the house in House of a Thousand Corpses. I wrote, obviously, this was because House of a Thousand Corpses was made on the Universal Studios Hollywood backlot, and The Devil's Rejects was never a Universal movie, so the Universal backlot was not available to them. We all know this. I'm not going to act like I'm delivering this fun fact that nobody knows about. But I wrote, I do have a headcanon that I think makes it work out perfectly fine for me. So what I tell myself to make this work out storyline wise is after the events of House of a Thousand Corpses, mainly after they killed those two police officers, I think the Firefly family knew the cops would come looking for them, so they just got up and moved houses. I think that's why they're in a different house, because they just moved houses. So the cops roll up to this dirty farmhouse. I wrote personally, I love the shots of Otis in his underwear sleeping with a dead girl. It's just like perfectly Otis. There's more behind the scenes facts about how I guess Bill Moseley wanted to be naked. Like he said, Otis, the character, would be naked in this scene. And Rob Zombie flat out said, I don't feel like dealing with a fucking naked Bill Moseley, so just put your fucking underwear on and let's go. Which I thought was hilarious. Mother Firefly and Baby are sleeping in separate bedrooms upstairs. We learn from Sheriff Wydell talking to Officer Dobson that Deputy Wydell, who was killed by Mother in House of a Thousand Corpses, was his brother. So that's kind of our first little thing about the two brothers. The sheriff gets on the speaker on a police car and yells to the family inside the house to come outside or they'll start shooting. The family wakes up and scrambles to grab their guns and get into a defensive position inside the home. I put in parentheses means like it's kind of my take on this. I wrote all the cussing in this scene is great. I love Otis's like shit fuck. Like,
yeah. And the homemade armor is badass that they have. It's just like, you know, thick steel with eye holes and shit. It's just like pretty wild. But yeah, they're scrambling for sure.
I remember in another, I think either in the documentary, an interview, or a director's commentary, Rob mentioned that he got that armor idea from somewhere. Like it was one of those like infamous criminal teams back in like the Western days, like not like Bonnie and Clyde shit, but somebody made like homemade armor out of like metal like that and used it.
Sick.
I also wrote that I love Baby and Mother's relationship when they're sitting there and Mother's like crying about how she's thinking about Baby when she was a fucking baby. I love that. I love how this family, they're like a family. Like they kind of legitimately love each other, but they're just like terrible to everyone else. They're all protective of Baby, which I make a big point of later on in the movie too. Yeah, they all like, you're like, oh, I think these people love each other. They just fucking hate everyone else for
He's like, I love you, mama. She's like, I love you, baby. Like, yeah, it's the world against them for sure.
Yeah, it's very sweet and like kind of charming in like a super weird way. For the shootout, all there is to write is we get a really badass shootout between the Firefly family and the cops. I wrote the badassery of the shootout cannot be understated. Next we have the cops enter the house and they shoot RJ dead, which looks kind of brutal. It looks like they just shoot him kind of in like one spot in the armor close enough that it just like, goes through to him, it seems like. Mother rushes to RJ's side and is captured by the police while Baby and Otis escape out the back. Next, we have really cool opening credits. Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers Band is a perfect song.
Such a great opening.
It's a perfect song. Again, I think in director's commentary, Rob mentioned that he had a lot of songs. He couldn't pick on or decide a song for the opening credits, and he finally hit the song, and he was instantly like, "Oh, that's fucking perfect."
It works perfect. And the shot of them going through that sewer line and baby's jeans and her ass with the Confederate flag on the back of them is fucking iconic. Sick.
I do love the I love that patch on the back of her jeans. I've said on here plenty of times by now that strictly aesthetically, like appearance wise, the Confederate flag is cool. I think I'm at least allowed to say that. You know, it's the fucking X with the stars. Like it just looks cool. It one different time, but two, I think even today, Baby and Otis would be the type of people to not give a shit and would still wear Confederate. I don't think they would give a fuck at all. In fact, I think if you had a problem with it, I mean, they would handle it in the way that they would handle it. So.
Right. Right.
But yeah, no, their outfits are always cool. That definitely can't be understated. How cool. To me, that's kind of like a Rob Zombie perk. Like I always say, at least a quarter of the reason Rob Zombie is famous is because he's undeniably cool. He's always wearing cool clothes. He always has cool hair. You always see him and think, "Oh, damn, I wish I looked like that."
Real for sure. Definitely.
So,
Dude, yeah, he oozes like just cool. Like he is just a cool dude for sure.
yeah. So then it makes sense the outfits that all of his characters wear in these movies. I mean, the pants Otis is wearing with the fucking knife thing in toward the ankle, like it's just badass. Everything is just badass, and he draws all this shit. You watching the documentary, he like draws it out, gives it to the clothing department. They go make the shit or buy the shit. But yeah, Baby's jeans are really cool in this movie. I think it's a kind of a cool play on the House of a Thousand Corpses jeans, how they have the whole ass cut out, but in this one there's just kind of holes around the ass. Opening credits. Yeah, Allman Brothers Band, Midnight Riders, a perfect song for this movie. Throughout the credits, we see Mother being put into the back of a police car. I love the way she's like thrashing about, trying to get out of the clutches of the police officer. We got Baby and Otis running from the police until they find an older woman with a car. They murder the lady and they take the car. Pretty standard Devil's Rejects stuff. Once the credits end, we get a news report along with footage of the police searching the house. The cops find pictures that the family had taken and they recognize Captain Spaulding. So we cut to a perfect intro for Captain Spaulding. I just wrote, he's fucking, or he's getting fucked, whichever way you like to say it. The actress on top of him that's fucking him is none other than porn star Ginger Lynn, which is, of course, classic shit right there. I don't think we ever hear her name, but on Wikipedia it says her name is Fanny. So she looks like a Fanny to me, so that makes sense. After the wild sex, Captain Spaulding calls Fanny a whore, and Fanny pulls a gun and shoots him in the face. Next bullet point. But the gunshot actually wakes him up. He was only dreaming. He wakes up in the same bed that we saw in the dream, but this woman he's actually in bed with is a bigger Mexican woman, was my polite way of putting it. Spaulding seems to be constantly irritated by this woman. Their chemistry is great. I think that actress died sometime last year. I think Rob Zombie posted about it. It might have been her. I can't remember.
Yeah, she keeps calling him like Poopy or Pookie, and he's like, "Stop calling me Poopy, damn it!" I just had the annoyance of her.
It's really funny. His interactions with her are, I mean, it kind of is like the same as when Baby goes to the liquor store in House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, they don't kill everybody. Like, they can have relationships with people. Like, this is obviously Spaulding's girlfriend or like girl that, you know, I don't know, some situationship type shit they're in. Like, yeah, he's not like driven to kill everybody. It's just some people, I guess. Next point I wrote, while drinking his morning coffee, Spaulding watches TV and enjoys seeing his commercial for his Museum of Monsters of Mad Men. No, his Museum of Monsters and Mad Men. Until it's suddenly interrupted by the breaking news report of the Firefly house being raided. At the same time, Baby calls him on the phone. This is where we learn that Spaulding is Baby's father, which I think is interesting. Imagine Captain Spaulding hooking up with Mother Firefly.
Sorry, real quick, I just wanted to comment on that phone call. I have a note here. I didn't mean to interrupt you like that, but
no, you're good.
So I just wanted to make a note of like even though I said like, Sherry Moon's acting is a lot better in this, that phone call was so like the worst fucking acting I feel like of her in the whole movie. Like, now granted it's just a little scene, but I feel like it's so fucking corny. Like that, hey, daddy, those pigs got us. Like the way she just went out about it. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be like kind of like an asshole critic here, and I feel like they could have like just redid that phone call like a little better. But anyway, that's all.
No, I can't blame you for that. There's a scene in Halloween, which actually will be the next Rob Zombie movie that we do if we're doing them in order. There's a scene in Halloween where it's like a short, couple of lines, and it's I think the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is like the worst I've ever heard Sherry Moon sound. So yeah, I know she's got a couple scenes where you're like, not as good as they could have been. So, I totally get that. Um This is where we learn that Spaulding is Baby's father. Spaulding tells Baby to meet him at the Kahiki Palms Motel, and then I put in print or in quotes, just like they always planned. So it's obvious they've always had a plan for if the cops ever roll up on them. And then they hang up. Spaulding grabs his gun and gets into his truck and starts driving. This is kind of where I also point out the relationship between him and the girl, because now this Mexican girl is clearly on his nerves, and like you would think Spaulding would just fucking kill her, like shut the fuck up and shoot her. No, he just, and he also leaves her in his house. Like, I mean, there's got to be some kind of trust between the two that he's just like, I'm going to leave you in my house, probably full of incriminating like evidence. And he's a funny character. So now we meet Charlie Altamont, who I love that name, the fucking Altamont show, I think in 1970 or whatever. Now we meet Charlie Altamont, a pimp who runs a whorehouse. Pretty simple. We get a funny little scene of Charlie interacting with one of his whores named Candy, who is like a childhood ruiner when you notice that it's the voice of Tommy Pickles.
Yeah, yeah.
Only Rob Zombie could ruin your childhood like that.
So true. I didn't find that out till so far after I watched. I think it was when 31. I seen 31, and I was like, that sounds like somebody I know. And I looked it up. I said, no fucking way, dude. She's a really good actress too.
Yeah, she is really good in this movie. She really just goes for it. Like, it really seems like Rob was just like, "Hey, be a whore." And she was like, mission accepted. Like, yeah, we get a funny little scene of Charlie interacting with one of his whores named Candy. I wrote, "This is peak Rob Zombie comedy." While this is happening, Charlie gets a phone call from Spaulding on a payphone on the road. Spaulding tells Charlie that he'll be arriving at his whorehouse soon to lay low while the cops are searching for them. So after this, we cut to Baby and Otis arriving at the Kahiki Palms Motel. And then we cut to a scene of a touring band called Banjo and Sullivan, which consists of two married couples. I think it's Roy and Adam, and then Wendy and Gloria. Which consists of two married couples and their roadie bringing all their belongings into one of the motel rooms. Here we get some more Rob Zombie, can't talk today, comedy and charming interaction between characters. They're talking about some show where Gloria was on one of those like mechanical bulls and it sounds like her tits flew out, and typical, Rob Zombie humor. So after this, we go back to Baby and Otis in the car. They're listening to a radio broadcast that's talking about the Firefly family and announcing their names. Otis is angered by this and he throws a tantrum. Right here, I wrote I love the interactions between Otis and Baby, arguing like siblings and yelling at each other for no real reason. So Baby gets out of the car to go get them a room in the motel. What she actually means by getting a room is taking over someone else's room at gunpoint. So Baby seduces Roy from the Banjo and Sullivan band, and when he drops his guard, Otis grabs him from behind with a gun to his head and has him lead Baby and Otis back to the room that the band is currently staying in.
When she goes to the guy Roy, when she goes, man, I bet all the girls want to fuck you. It takes you so off guard, even as a viewer, that like I almost like put myself in that position for a moment. I was like, holy fuck! Like any older dude or any guy would have fell for that because she was so hot. And I feel like the way she did that, like, now that's her good acting there. I was like, damn, she made that believable as fuck, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say she kills it in this role. And it does catch you off guard. It's really out of nowhere. He's talking about Johnny Cash shaking his hand 1 second, and she's, "Oh, I bet all the girls want to fuck you." If any girls, if any girl said that to me, like I would be like, okay, who's got a gun? Like who's coming out? Like, there's no way this is real. And it's a very kind of a clever line too. Like it's kind of witty. She's not saying I want to fuck you. She's not saying she wants to do anything. She's just like, I bet all the girls, I don't know. I think it's kind of witty like that. But this is her getting back to her good acting as Baby. It's definitely a great scene of hers. So Baby and Otis hold the band at gunpoint in their room. The band's roadie gets back to the room after walking to a nearby store and is immediately shot in the head and killed by Otis. I always thought that was kind of Otis as like, we mean business, don't fuck around. So we jump back over to Captain Spaulding, whose truck has just run out of gas. He pulls into this parking lot of what looks like a convenience store where he spots a woman and her small child getting into their car. The fun fact of this is that the woman is the totally girl from the original Halloween. I can't remember her name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of Laurie's friends, the blonde girl that dies naked.
I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's she actually tried out. She auditioned for the role of Gloria from the band who gets raped by Otis, and they said she didn't look quite right, but they liked her, so they cast her as this mom that Spaulding knocks out, which I wrote. Spaulding knocks the woman out, scares the child, and then steals the car. This is also a classic like Sid Haig scene with the "Don't you like clowns?" Back in the motel room, Baby is taunting the band, who are now basically being held hostage. Otis seems to target Roy specifically with his taunting. And then we get the uncomfortably long scene where Otis forces Roy's wife, Gloria, to perform oral sex on him at gunpoint. This is like terrible. Like, as a dude, like, imagine like even a girl I've been dating for like 2 weeks. Like, if this happens, like, I don't know that I'm like not doing something drastic to myself afterward, because this is like some as a man type shit. Like, you had to see this happen to.
That's what I have in my note. It's funny you brought that up because I literally wrote that hotel scene was so horrific. I put, even as a horror fan, I put myself in that position, for a man to see whoever, his girlfriend or his wife, being sexually assaulted in front of me. I said it's just brutal. And my notes, and I thought of like the Night Stalker, right? Because that's the shit he would do. Like, correlating it to this movie, like he would, make a guy watch him rape at gunpoint. He'd rape like a woman and make her husband watch. And I couldn't imagine putting myself in that position. That's how, like, as a director, Rob Zombie makes you, like you said, that feeling of like despair, fear. He puts that in you in that scene because you're like, holy fuck, this is brutal. And he smells the gun when he puts it down in her panties. Like, that's fucking sick shit. But what a crazy scene, dude.
Yeah, it's terrible. I know, of course, one of my ideas that had popped up one of the earlier times I watched this was, when he starts to get up, Roy starts to stand up, and Otis points the gun at him, and then Roy sits back down. I remember I was thinking, like, dude, who cares? Like, just get up and charge at him. But then you got to think, well, if he shoots you and kills you, now he just has your wife, and now you're dead, and now you've just died in front of your wife. I would prefer not to be murdered in front of you know what I mean? Like, there's just too many like factors that go into it. It's just terrible. It's terrible all around. And Bill Moseley plays it perfectly. And the actress that plays Gloria, God, I wish I could remember her name. Priscilla Barnes. She plays this very well too. And I guess in the director's commentary, Rob said that Bill Moseley had a harder time with this. Apparently Priscilla Barnes had a blast. and was like a champ about the whole thing. And Bill Moseley was the one that was like, dude, this is bumming me out, which I'd be the same way. Like, it's a
Right.
really well shot, like, it's shot from the perfect angle to where it looks very realistic, basically.
He's got in real life, Bill Moseley has like 3 daughters, I believe, too. So like, I feel like, I know as an actor you don't put your personal life in it, but who knows, maybe he kind of was like, geez, this is fucked up. But came out really good. He did such a good job.
He tells a story where at the time when Rob gave him the script for this movie the first time, he got to that scene in the script and he said he didn't want to do it. He went and he showed his wife the script and he said that he was hoping she was going to say no so that he could tell Rob, my wife won't let me do it. But his wife was like, it's a really good scene, like, for an actor. And he's like, fuck, I got to do this.
How
Like,
wild is that? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, played perfectly by everyone. And then Baby constantly taunting in the background is also perfect. Like, that's peak Sherry Moon's Baby.
Yeah. I also have that ironically here when I'm getting a little head, but when after Otis leaves with the men and she's just with the 2 girls and she goes, give me a kiss. And she, says to say, thanks, baby. I had a really good time. I fucking love that. I have that right here. It's just fucking hilarious. Like you said, the taunting, it wasn't even like corny taunting, like House of a Thousand Corpses, baby. It was like really good, realistic, like in your face, like taunting, fuck you to them.
It's really like it's like if a school child was like murderously dangerous. Like,
Right.
so, after the rape scene, I literally wrote, there's more to it, but it's just something that you can't describe without sounding like a terrible person. It really might be one of the most intense rape scenes I've seen in like any movie. So after this, Otis gets Roy Sullivan and Adam Banjo into the band's van, and leaves Baby with the wives, Gloria and Wendy, back in the room. So we get this quick scene at the local police station where the sheriff has Mother Firefly handcuffed in a cell. He tries asking her where Baby, Otis, and Spaulding might be hiding, but she won't give them up. She then begins taunting the sheriff with the fact that she killed his brother in House of a Thousand Corpses, which causes the sheriff to lose his self-control, and he chokes Mother Firefly until his officers pull him off of her. And here I wrote a quick, in parentheses for myself, this is what I think of when I think of the Leslie Easterbrook versus Karen Black argument. This is like, I can't see Karen Black. This is the scene where she starts screaming, and it's Karen Black is way too classy for this. And I don't mean that as like an insult to Leslie Easterbrook. It's just that Leslie Easterbrook was like a gritty, dirty, she screamed. Karen Black, I would imagine she would deliver the scene quieter and kind of like more calm and in control. She wouldn't be screaming. Then like she might be loud, but she would still have some kind of like class and finesse to her while she's doing it. But I think this movie called for like a dirty, grittier, like screaming woman to do it. Basically, I think I talked about it before. I know the reason was just straight up money. Karen Black wanted more money, and they just couldn't afford it. And I guess it was all good. Like, she wasn't mad or anything, but yeah, it was just money. I guess they couldn't afford to pay her what she wanted. So then after this quick scene, we go back to Otis, who is with Roy and Adam in the band's van. Always got to write the music down. Elvin Bishop, Fooled Around and Fell in Love, is playing here. It's a great song. I discovered the song through this movie. I wrote, Otis is still talking shit to Roy. Specifically, I had to write the whole quote down. Specifically, he calls him a city faggot with a cowboy hat. Like, it's just hilarious. Like, I would almost be like, if I was in this guy's shoes and I'm like about to die, like, I might laugh. I might be like, oh, that's a good one. Like,
Good one. Yeah, good one.
oh, it's too good. They finally reach a desolate field out in the middle of nowhere. Otis walks them through the field at gunpoint, where he continues taunting them. We get the "I smell your wife's pussy stink on my gun," which is probably like the worst sentence ever uttered by a human being in like the history of the world. He then informs them that they're here so Otis can dig up some guns that he has buried in this field, and then he plans to kill them. Once they learn Otis is planning to kill them, a fight breaks out between them. The two try to subdue Otis, but Otis overpowers and outmaneuvers both of them. One cool thing that I thought just about the scene behind the scenes, that the little fight scene was choreographed by Kane Hodder, who is Jason Voorhees.
Oh, okay, that's badass.
Yeah, he was proud of the fact this whole fight, there's no like over actiony punches. That it's all like kind of grappling and they're all rolling around in the dirt and Otis gets that one kick. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that fucking Jason Voorhees choreographed this fight.
Oh yeah.
So Otis overpowers and maneuvers both of them. He beats Roy to death with a stick after delivering his now iconic Tex Watson inspired one liner, I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work. I know the actual line from Tex Watson is, I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business. I would imagine Rob changed it just to kind of not be too on the nose about stealing it from a Manson story. So I kind of like that. He changed it a little bit. And it sounds more like Otis. I don't see Otis saying devil's business. I do see him saying devil's work, you know.
And that shot, that camera angle of them first person looking up at him, and Otis looks almost like I don't know, he doesn't even look human. He just looks like, you know, and again, you put yourself in that position. And I'm like, he's like, pray to your God, you know, like that's fucking like brutal, dude. Brutal.
That's the most intense part to me because like I have a lot of Christian friends. So like put yourself in the shoes of someone who believes in God. Like that's miserable. This guy wants you to pray to this God that is supposed to save you from harm and keep like it's miserable. Otis is he's the best shit talker in all of horror.
Right. And when Roy or you know the old man, he starts you know, his prayer is actually, it's sad because he's like, God bless the little birds and the little bunnies. Like he's so out of it that he doesn't even know. I mean, I'm Catholic. I wouldn't know what the hell to say. You know what I mean? What are you? Because you feel like you've been almost let down in that point because you know he's mocking you like God's gonna strike me with lightning and whatever. Like what a position to be in, and just what a great shot. You know, genius scene.
Yeah, Otis is crazy. The whole I want lightning to crash down upon my fuck. It's really wild. Like, you know, again, in the shoes of a person that believes in God, like I do like his little prayer, bless the birds, bless the bunnies. I think it could be taken one of two ways. One, like you said, he's just kind of so confused that he's like, what the fuck is going on? So this is the first thing that comes to his mind. Or two, and maybe I don't want to say he's like a selfless guy. Like, so he's praying for other things in his last moments. One thing I kind of jumped over now that we're talking about Roy's like personality as a whole. Uh, Rob Zombie always does the shit with his characters where they're kind of all bad people. So I completely accidentally jumped over the fact that Roy was about to cheat on his wife with Baby.
Right. That's a good point.
So you get this huge kind of like dark gray shade. Like, no, nobody deserves to die because they're unfaithful to their wife, but you're looking at this guy feeling sympathy for him and you're like, oh, well, he kind of not got himself into this position, but it's like he was literally about to go into another hotel room and fuck this girl while his wife was in the next room. Like,
such a good point, dude.
that's one of my favorite things about Rob Zombie's movies, and it's in like all of them, all the characters. There's never like a, except for Laurie and Halloween, there's never like a sweet teenage virgin in a white dress. Like they're these dirty characters that have shades of gray and they do bad shit. And then you have to kind of ask yourself, do I feel bad for this guy? Most horror movies spell it out for you. You're supposed to feel bad for this guy. You feel bad for this guy. Rob doesn't do that. He says, do you feel bad for this guy knowing what he's done? Do you feel bad for this person knowing what they were going to do or what they're, you know, it's all shades of gray with these guys. So after I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work, he then begins cutting Adam's face off with his knife, which, as we learned in Corpses, and then we'll learn in 3 from Hell again, he seems to love doing. Otis loves cutting guys' faces off, which is great. To me, that's probably, like, I would put being set on fire alive and, like, having your face cut off is, like, they're up there at the top with like what's the worst shit that could happen to you. So after this scene, I think this is kind of this is Otis's big scene for sure. This is the big iconic Otis scene. We're taken back to the motel room where Baby and the two wives, Gloria and Wendy, are watching TV. I had to put a note in here. Whenever you get a chance, you should look up the original script for The Devil's Rejects online. I could always send you the link, but it's fairly easy to find if you Google it. In the original script, in this part where they're sitting in the motel room watching TV, on the TV is a news report that's talking about how Baby is actually a victim. She was kidnapped by the Firefly family, like 4 years old. The Firefly family killed her parents and took her. And so Baby's watching this news report and she goes, "Oh, that's bullshit," and then goes back to what she's doing. So in the original script, it tells you that Baby is like a victim of Stockholm syndrome. She's been kidnapped by the Firefly family, and now she loves them like as if they're her own family.
Huh.
Rob has said that he got rid of that because he wanted the bond between Spalding and Baby to remain, very fatherly and daughterly and like pure as it is. But I think that's a really interesting idea that Baby was actually kidnapped and, now she believes that she's part of this family.
And you could roll with that too, because she kind of like doesn't really look like all of them. Like she's like, perfect white teeth, perfect skin, and like all this shit, and they all have rotted out teeth. I don't know. I mean, she just doesn't,
Yes, she is way prettier. I guess in defense though, you could say Karen Black is also very pretty, so that would make sense. But Spalding is the dad pushing out Sherry Moon Zombie. That's yeah, that is very lucky to get some genes like that when your parents look like that.
Right. It's like the girl from the Munsters, the daughter she's beautiful, but they think that she's ugly because she's so perfect looking.
I love that ongoing joke through that series. So, I wrote, in typical Firefly fashion, Baby is taunting the two women. When Wendy asks if she can use the bathroom, Baby demands that Wendy slap Gloria in the face multiple times before she's allowed into the bathroom. Gloria allows Wendy to slap her, which is another one of those kind of character moments. Gloria is a very good person that she's like, feel free, I'll let you hit me because you need to go to the bathroom. Wendy goes into the bathroom finally and starts screaming and causing a ruckus. When Baby gets up to stop Wendy, Gloria grabs Baby's gun off of a table and aims it at Baby. Baby responds by quickly throwing a knife into Gloria's chest. As Gloria falls to her knees, bleeding out, Baby pulls her pants down, allowing Gloria to shoot her right in the ass. Gloria tries to shoot Baby, and we learn that Baby's gun was never loaded.
This is all mind control. That's what she says.
I wrote the line specifically. I fucking love this. And Baby's line, it's all fucking mind power. I love that shit because that's almost tragic that this whole time Baby's had a gun that's not loaded. Like there really is a chance these two women could have got the jump on Baby and whooped her ass. But it's all fucking mind power, like Baby tells you. It's kind of like I think it's a cool commentary on the idea that you don't even need to necessarily be dangerous as long as you make people fear. As long as you instill the appropriate amount of fear into people, you can get what you want out of them.
The Manson shit right there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought that was a crazy like line, like a whole concept to put in there. The gun was never fucking loaded, and now Gloria's fucking dying on the floor. Yeah, it's crazy. Baby pushes Gloria down to the ground where she lays bleeding and dies. Wendy comes out of the bathroom and sees what's going on, and she runs out of the motel room. Baby follows after her. Wendy runs into Spalding, who's just now arrived at the motel. Spalding knocks Wendy out. Here we get kind of a lighthearted scene where the sheriff learns that all the Firefly family are named after characters that Groucho Marx played in the movies. This is kind of just like a not necessarily pivotal to the plot, but if you like Rob Zombie and his like wacky sense of humor, then it's a cool scene. And I like it. I like learning about all this Groucho Marx shit. Quickly back at the room, Baby and Spalding bring Wendy back inside. And then back to the police. The police have brought in a movie critic to tell them everything he knows about Groucho Marx. This part I wrote again. This scene is almost pointless to the story, but if you enjoy Rob Zombie's sense of humor, you'll enjoy this scene. I do love how diehard the sheriff is about Elvis Presley in the Sony.
Yeah.
He's like, "I will kick the living shit out of you." I think there probably are men like that in the South about Elvis. I mean, there are diehards about Elvis Presley for sure. So I
Right.
thought that was hilarious.
I also think it was a spin. I mean, I could be wrong, but I commented, I put into my notes here about the that film critic. He was like obnoxious and just over the top. I don't know if this is a way of like Rob Zombie kind of like making fun of film critics because like this guy was because they could be you could have like one of the perfect example this movie. You look on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like shitty reviews, and it's a fucking phenomenal film. Like you get these critics that are like, oh, it lacked this, it lacked that, but it's a masterpiece. I don't know if this was his way of like making fun of film critics because that guy was like borderline like fucking loser.
I think so 100%. And like pretty much any interview where Rob Zombie talks about movies, he talks shit about movie critics. In his Joe Rogan interview, he tells this little funny thing about he's like, you'll read this terrible review about your movie or your album, and then you'll meet the guy in real life, and you're like, oh, this fucking nerd wrote this review about my fucking like rock and roll album. Like, what's he talking about?
So true.
So it makes total sense. It's just Rob being a dick, but like being funny. Like it's pretty funny. And I'm pretty sure House of a Thousand Corpses was like critically uh like criticized by a lot of the critics when it first came out. So we again cut back to the motel room where Baby and Spaulding are hanging out. Otis finally returns with the guns he dug up. This is really the first time we see Otis and Spaulding interact. Even like with House of a Thousand Corpses, we never saw them talk. We saw Otis get out of the back seat in Spaulding's car, but that was really it. So this was kind of a big moment. They immediately start arguing, which I think is hilarious. The first time we see them meet, they start fighting about Otis taking so long. I like how Spaulding is like, "What the fuck took you so long?" And I'm like, dude, Spaulding, you didn't show up until way later. Like, well, who are you to criticize this guy? Like, he went and got the guns.
Right.
Otis taunts Wendy with the face of her dead husband. This is like stuff you can't explain to anyone that's never seen like a Rob Zombie movie. Like,
Brutal.
we cut forward to the next morning where one of the motel maids enters the room to clean. She discovers the bodies of Gloria and the band's roadie. I think his name's Jimmy. I could be wrong. But yeah, their bodies are dead and mangled in the bathroom, and the bathroom is covered with their blood. The fireflies have kind of written all over the bathroom in the victim's blood. The maid runs out of the bathroom to find Wendy wearing her dead husband's face hanging from the door of the room. Wendy is still alive. She gets herself down off the door hook and runs frantically into the road, screaming and clearly traumatized, and she's run over by a semi truck. This is one of those moments where you could totally say, like, this was a character making stupid choices, but I don't care. It's worth it. I mean, this girl is wearing a dead dude's face. She gets hit by a semi truck. Like, this is peak Rob Zombie shit right here.
And the I could imagine they were probably on a like a rail track when they were filming her running. And I could imagine they were probably pulling the camera backwards. And as she's running, dude, they just have the camera going like this, and you just feel like you're running with her. How frantically she's running is just such a sick scene, like a sick way of filming. And then that wide open scene when she gets missed by one car, and you're like, oh, she's gonna live, and then burn, just like roadkill. Fucking
So, the shooting of that scene is actually on the documentary. I know, let me actually see. The first half of that documentary is on YouTube for free, and it might be in that first half. Whether or not it is, that you should check it out. I think it's I'm on YouTube right now. Rob Zombie 30 Days in Yeah, if you look up Rob Zombie 30 Days in Hell, it'll say The Making of the Devil's Rejects Part 1. It's an hour and 5 minutes of it, so it's only the first half. But it's really cool. And yeah, that scene is literally it's a guy with a camera in front of her, running backwards behind her. I think they might have it on like a stand on wheels. Rob made a comment about they did one shot of it, and Rob said, I don't like it because it looks too much like a rock and roll music video, which I think has kind of been like a not a weakness, but a spot. Like he doesn't want to be seen as the music video guy. He wanted to become a legitimate director. So anytime he saw something that was too music video-ish, he said no. Which is funny because a lot of people criticize Halloween 2 for having some scenes that look like music video type stuff. But That's
Right.
a whole different thing. But yeah, you should definitely check that out whenever you got like an hour to sit on YouTube and fuck around.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. And I have, lastly, on the notes on that scene here, I have that running scene has the film style of the last scene in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre when she's running. She's just trying to run and Leatherface is behind her and she gets to that truck and jumps in. That kind of is what that reminded me of, like the camera shaking and everything.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely like shaky camera work like that. You know, there's a right amount of shaking, of course. You don't want to overdo it, but when you could do it just right, it looks like a guy is just literally running with the camera because usually that's what's going on. It's that like true crime documentary style. So now we see the police arriving at the scene at the motel. The sheriff shows the maid pictures of baby Otis and Spaulding and asks if she recognizes them, but the maid never saw them. Here we are introduced to the unholy two, Rondo and Billy Ray Snapper, perfectly cast by Danny Trejo and Diamond Dallas Page. That fun fact is that Chris Jericho auditioned for the role of Billy Ray Snapper, and he was
Or
told that he's too pretty, he can't play it, so they gave it to Diamond Dallas
I
Page.
I can see that for sure.
And I tend to believe it because I know Chris Jericho and Rob Zombie are friends. They've done like interviews together and stuff. There are two hitmen that the sheriff has illegally hired to help track down the Fireflies. This is kind of our first sign of the sheriff is willing to kind of, take different approaches to catching these guys than just doing it straight and by the law. Baby Otis and Spaulding are driving in the van they stole from the band, listening to Steely Dan, Reelin' in the Years. Great track. Also discovered Steely Dan through this movie.
Amazing, amazing band, amazing song.
It's perfectly. It's yeah. No, you can never say enough about the soundtrack. It's perfect. Otis is expressing discontent with the idea of going to Charlie's whorehouse like Spaulding has planned. We get the now classic scene where the three argue about getting ice cream. Baby wants ice cream, and Otis doesn't want to stop. I love the way they treat Baby. Spaulding is very fatherly and like, let's just get her some fucking ice cream. Like he really seems to like care for his daughter. It's very strange on these like murderous psychopaths, but he's like, my daughter wants fucking ice cream. Like we're getting fucking ice cream.
Literally.
So after some arguing, we cut forward and see that Baby and Spaulding now have ice cream cones. Now the song is also changed to James Gang, Funk 49. James Gang is like one of my favorite bands out of the time. I think definitely also one of Rob Zombie's favorite bands. He uses James Gang and Joe Walsh a lot. He uses their best song actually in 31 for the opening credits. And then I wrote the note, it's wild how much fun we're having with these characters like this soon after just watching what Otis did to Gloria in the motel. Like it's literally, I don't even think it's 20 minutes. It's crazy. Sheriff Wydell drives to the Firefly family farmhouse where he hallucinates and sees his dead brother in the house. His brother tells him that he can't leave the house and rest in peace until the Fireflies are dead. Then the sheriff wakes up and we see it was just a dream. Rondo calls the sheriff and informs him that Charlie's real name is actually Wolf J. Flywheel, which we learn is another Groucho Marx name, which is an obvious connection to the family. Sheriff Wydell returns to the cell that Mother Firefly is locked in, where he taunts her a little bit. Mother Firefly does more of her sexual stuff that she's really good at in this movie, and Wydell stabs her to death. After that dream where we saw his brother, he seems to be entirely consumed with the idea of killing the Firefly family. Was a little note that I had written. The three Fireflies arrive at Charlie's whorehouse. The set production is incredible here. I had to write the whorehouse looks like one of those old Western bars in the middle of like an old Western town that you'd see like in a...
Yeah, like an old saloon with like the flap doors where you, yeah.
That's the word I was looking for when I was writing this. I couldn't think of it. Yes, it looks like an old Western saloon. I had to write down the quote, no sense standing around like stone-foot roosters on a fuck farm. Like, where do you come up with this stuff? It's genius. Charlie invites the three inside, and we get a great party montage scene featuring, again, I had to write the track, Rocky Mountain Way by Joe Walsh, one of the best fucking songs in the world. Joe Walsh is like one of the greatest rock stars of all time.
Absolutely. That song fit perfectly in those scenes, and it's like how it's slow moving and they're all just dancing, having fun, doing coke. I like how he introduces the drugs into it because they're really fucked up. And the color palette I put here, the color, great use of the color palette, dude, of like the greens, the purples, the trippy like psychedelic colors. One scene transitions to the next. Again, kind of giving off that Natural Born Killers style of filming where it shows them doing coke and it's a still shot and it slides to the left. Very fucking cool.
It is
Very
perfect. It almost goes to kind of like House of a Thousand Corpses ish colors in this party scene.
Yeah, like what we talked about when they get in their house and it's got all those like the acid wash colors, like the like Alice Cooper music video acid wash colors. Like that's what it reminds me of. The greens, purples, dark blues. It's fucking awesome.
It is a great scene. Um, I wrote the party montage scene is intercut with scenes of Sheriff Wydell alone talking to himself in a mirror as if he's talking to the Fireflies. Quick note: he's clearly becoming more and more unhinged and consumed with rage. The next morning, we get another peak Rob Zombie comedy scene of Charlie buying chickens from the local rednecks for Spalding to make his world famous fried chicken. I didn't put that together the first time I watched this movie that he's buying chickens because Spalding makes the fried chicken.
Yeah, he actually says it. He says, "My brother makes the world's best fried chicken." And let me just comment: the like horror master Michael Berryman, like anything he plays is so good. I mean, unfortunately, it's because his physical appearance, but he's such a great horror actor, and just the way he looks, he just the first time I ever seen him was in it was like a Nickelodeon special, like a Keenan and Kel haunted house Nickelodeon special, and that's how I got introduced to Michael Berryman. He's just awesome, dude. Awesome.
I definitely accidentally left him out in the scene earlier at the whorehouse where they're talking about.
Because he's really only there briefly, and he's like, "I ain't no chicken fucker, boss. I ain't no chicken fucker." Like,
it's great. Rob Zombie has said before that he likes to cast actors in roles that are like the opposite of what they usually do. And so Michael Berryman is usually like, he's a cannibal and like The Hills Have Eyes. So in this role, he's like a friendly, he's just like a nice guy. I mean, he's funny, he's friendly.
And that actor, I forget the guy's name who plays Charlie.
Ken Foree.
So great. And when he's like, they're talking about the chickens, and he goes, "Rhode Island Red." Like, it's so funny, dude. It's so funny.
That is a great part, the way he says it. So I wrote the redneck who's selling the chickens accuses Charlie and his assistant, Michael Berryman. I know he has a name. I don't remember what it is. He accuses them of wanting the chickens so they can fuck the chickens. I wrote, it's a full scene about fucking chickens. Only Rob Zombie could pull it off. I mean,
so true. And like, dude, I remember when I first watched it, I actually like, it's rare that I laugh out loud. Like, I laughed out loud at that scene when he's like, "You want to cut that chicken's head off and you stick your dick in its ass?" And he goes, "Bah!" And he's like, "You saying I'm gonna put my dick in a chicken?" Well, I'm just saying, he looks like fuck some chickens. Fucking hilarious, dude.
I love the way that Ken Foree says it back to him, and he's like, "You think I would cut a chicken's head off? Fuck it," and go, "Ah." That's hilarious. Yeah, Ken Foree is great. He's really good. Even in Halloween, he's got that small role as Joe Grizzly, the only guy to ever land any like punches on Michael Myers. It seems like,
yeah.
Aside from Busta Rhymes, but we don't talk about that.
Don't talk about that.
So yeah, only Rob Zombie could pull this off. I wrote, while leaving the chicken farm, Sheriff Wydell pulls up to Charlie's car and tells him he needs to have baby Otis and Spalding at his whorehouse that night at midnight so he can come pick them up. We get a little scene of Sheriff and the Unholy Two talking about the night they have planned ahead. This is another kind of comedic scene. It's relevant to the plot, but it's mostly like Danny Trejo and Diamond Dallas Page kind of being funny. Like Danny Trejo does this weird little, if you want to think like I forget what he says, like it's either like a cockroach. If you want to think like a roach, you need to be like a roach, and talks about how this is why he's good at being I think they're called bounty hunters, but they're kind of more like hitmen in this. We jump forward to nighttime. Spalding is hanging out with Charlie. Baby is hanging out with one of the whores, and Otis is getting down with one of the whores. Tommy Pickles, again to ruin your childhood. The sheriff, Rondo, and Billy Ray show up. They kill the two whores and they rough up the three fireflies before throwing them into the sheriff's car. This scene I wrote, I love this part when the sheriff is driving with the fireflies in the back seat, and you can't hear any dialogue over the music, but you can see the sheriff is like laughing maniacally and he's driving recklessly. You're like, oh, this guy's truly lost his mind now. Like he's gonna fuck these guys up. And just the way William Forsythe, the guy that plays Wydell, he plays he's great as Sheriff Wydell. We see the sheriff has driven the three back to their house. He has them all tied up in chairs where he begins beating and torturing them. He staples photographs of their victims to their bodies. This part I wrote, I love how the Fireflies never stop talking shit. Like, they're getting tortured and they're continuing to talk shit.
I have that written. I have specifically written Captain Spaulding, how when Wydell goes, see this is my brother, and he goes, yeah, I remember him, stupid motherfucker, just like you. They're so bad. They have zero fear, dude.
Yeah, they're relentless. In the scene just before this, I know I mentioned it in the last House of a Thousand Corpses. Spalding, how he has no fear of death. So like when the sheriff walks up and Spalding's like, if you're gonna start the killing, you best start it right here. Like he's not afraid of dying.
I have that written right here. I put, we mentioned Spalding is never scared last podcast. I said it's true. Exact wording.
Yeah, he's not afraid. And then I also love in this part, again, the protectiveness of Baby. So when he's stapling the victims onto them, he says, who killed this one? And Baby says, I killed this one. And Spalding says, no, she's mine. I'll take it. Like it's kind of like adorable. They don't want to see Baby get hurt. We see this again in 3 from Hell when Otis tries to save Baby. Baby's like, no, bring it on. I'll take it. But Spalding's like, no, I'll take it. Spalding will take Baby's pain in order to save her because he cares about her that much. I think it's kind of charming. After he staples the pictures onto Baby and Baby's crying and kind of yelling, you can see Spalding gets mad and he's like, come and get me, motherfucker. Like, he just really wants to protect Baby, and it's kind of sweet. The night continues as Sheriff Wydell is drinking and talking with the Fireflies. Wydell busts out the cattle prod and starts shocking Spalding before just straight up beating him with the prod, which I, for some reason, think is hilarious. Like, he becomes so consumed that he's got a cattle prod and he instead chooses to just beat him over the head with it. Wydell shows Baby pictures of a dead mother firefly. Baby is obviously upset by this, which again also is more of the Baby and like mother relationship that I like. Like you can see Baby's almost like in denial, when she's like, no, those aren't real. There's no way. Wydell hammers nails through Otis's hands into the armrests of the chair he's tied to. And finally, we see what Wydell's plan is. He lets Baby run away, and then he begins soaking the house in gasoline and sets the place on fire with Otis and Spalding still tied up. He leaves the house and starts chasing after Baby with an axe. Charlie shows up again after betraying them just a couple scenes ago, and he tries to save Baby, but Wydell pulls a fucking Jack Nicholson in The Shining and kills him with an axe. Baby starts running again. We get the throwbacks to the Run Rabbit Run thing with Sheriff Wydell's lines. And Wydell shoots Baby in the leg and catches up to her where he starts whipping her with a leather strap. He starts to strangle her. And here we get to the part that is probably my one and biggest complaint about this movie. He's strangling her, and just when it looks like he's about to kill her, Tiny shows up and grabs the sheriff from behind, breaks his neck, and throws him down to the ground dead. I like Tiny. I have no problems with Tiny. I think he's great. I have a little bit, it's not my favorite when you just here's a character in the beginning of the movie. They just disappear for the entire fucking movie. And then in the last 5 minutes when it's convenient, he just shows back up again. And I remember when I first watched this movie, I thought, oh, Baby's going to die. Like, what's going to happen? Like, Baby's going to die. And I remember when I saw Tiny, I was like, dude, where the fuck has he been? Like, but you can't just bring him back now.
Right. They could have did more with that scene. and they could have did more with Tiny, for sure. And yeah, like it just popped up. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, I've made my peace with it. You know, it's cool, it's fine. I love this movie to death. I'm not actually it's not a big complaint at all. It's kind of, you know, I would have liked to maybe a little something different, or at least a little bit more of Tiny throughout the movie, just to keep him in our heads. You know,
Right, right.
Tiny goes back into the burning house and unties Otis and Spaulding. The three get into a car. They try to bring Tiny along with them, but Tiny decides to go into the burning house and die in the fire. I kind of really like that. It's kind of a throwback to One in Corpses, the way that Tiny was burned. That's what's wrong with him. So now he's dying by fire. I think it's kind of just like Tiny saying, you know, without mother and without the family, like I'm doomed. Like this guy's he's a fucking monster. You know, without his family, he's kind of got no hope in the real world. So I think that's him saying, you know what, it's all good. I'm just gonna count my loss. I'll go sit in the house and yeah, and die.
It's over for me. It's like going down with the ship, the captain going down with the ship.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was a very kind of poetic way for him to end. Uh, Finally, we're at one of the greatest endings in all of cinematic history.
So true. So true.
Otis is driving the car down a long open highway as Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd starts to play. Spaulding and Baby are passed out in the back seat. Eventually, they are met with a police barricade in the road, and the Fireflies grab their guns and start charging at the police, shooting as the iconic Freebird guitar solo starts playing. I had to write in the book House of Rejects, which you should also check out. It's on Amazon. I mentioned it last time. It's just that book about the production of all the Firefly movies. Apparently, Rob Zombie's original idea for this was the song Black Betty.
That would not have fit as well.
I know. So originally what he wrote was there was talking in it too. Originally what happened was they pulled up to the police barricade and there was nothing on the radio, or there was something bad on the radio, and Baby said, if I'm going to die, I want to die to a good song, so change it to something. And Otis changes it, and that song Black Betty, the 70s version of it, comes on. And is that what the song's called? Is it actually called Black Betty?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah, that was the song he originally was going to go with. And then he realized Freebird is the right choice.
Yeah, he totally picked a good one there because, you know, as Freebird is super emotional in the beginning, but then it gets super hardcore. I mean, it basically flows with that scene so fucking well. I agree with you. One of the best endings ever in any movie. My only gripe is like, I thought that was it. Like, there's no way anybody is surviving that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I get, like, I hate to be like one of them guys like, it's so realistic because, like, it's a movie. But getting unloaded with, 12 shotguns and fucking AR-15s, there's no way. When I saw the ending, I'm like, all right, well, that was it. I mean, it was a great ending, don't get me wrong, but I think they should have left it there. And Three from Hell, I have my own opinions. But what I want to comment on is what I thought was, I mean, that ending was phenomenal, but the credits and the song Terry Reid, Seed of Memory, is such a good fucking choice. That's actually the first time I ever heard that song. I didn't even know who Terry Reid was. And when that flute that flute part plays in the beginning, and it's just a very like melancholy, like poetic type, I don't know, melody is just crazy. Like when I seen those credits roll, I was like, dude, what a great choice. And then that scene where it's just getting, the flying over the hills and shit. Not very rarely am I like, oh, the credits are great. I was like, these credits are fucking great, dude. That's such a great song.
Terry Reid has a song that Rob Zombie uses in the ending credits of Three from Hell that is actually my favorite Terry Reid song, Faith to Arise. It's for some reason not on like Apple Music. I don't know if it's on Spotify, but it's on YouTube. That's my favorite. I do like Seed of Memory, of course, too, but yeah, Faith to Arise is really good. Back to the ending in Three from Hell. Eventually, we're gonna get to Three from Hell. I have my theories as to why. I have a kind of a lot of Rob Zombie theories as far as his entire filmography. Like I said, I draw a line down the middle. There's House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, Halloween, Halloween 2. After that, everything changes. After his terrible experience in Hollywood with the Halloween movies, shit changes. That's when Sherry Moon really became the star of his movies. She always had a big role, and actually not even in Halloween 2, she really had a very small role. After Halloween 2, it became the Sherry Show. She was the star of the movies. I think that's a byproduct of the way his experience with the Weinsteins in Hollywood on the Halloween movies, which we'll get into when we get to like the Halloweens and like Lords of Salem. I think his priorities changed as a movie maker. Originally there's a quote from his long-term manager. It's like Andy Gould. I can never remember the guy's name, but the guy that was his manager for years says that when he met Rob wanted to win an Oscar. He wanted to, like, his goal was to start making horror movies and then take his experience from horror movies to Hollywood and direct, real Hollywood movies and win an Oscar. But I think after Halloween and Halloween 2, he realized he was so miserable in like the mainstream Hollywood system. That's why the last like 4 of his movies have been kind of low budget, almost indie movies. I mean 31 was fucking crowdfunded, Lords of Salem was an indie movie. I'm getting way off track here. But so that kind of gets into my theory from Three from Hell. I think Three from Hell was honestly, as much as I love Rob Zombie, I think that was just kind of a knee jerk reaction to Lords of Salem and 31 not doing so well as far as profit goes. They were kind of small movies. They didn't make Lords of Salem literally only made back its budget, I'm pretty sure. 31 had to be crowdfunded twice. The first crowdfunding failed and he had to crowdfund again and got a very small release and didn't do a lot. So I think the only reason Three from Hell was made, one, because I'm sure Rob thought, he talks about how fun he had making The Devil's Rejects. He says that's in his interview with, I can't remember the guy's name. Who's the guy with the shaved head that's a germaphobe?
Oh,
Howie Mandel. Rob does an interview with Howie Mandel where he says he's been chasing the dragon ever since Devil's Rejects. He's never had as much fun making a movie. So I'm sure that plays into why he wanted to make Three from Hell. Let's get the band back together and try to have as much fun. Right. I also think a lot of it was, Lords of Salem didn't do so well. 31 didn't do so well. What was my last popular movie? Devil's Rejects. Okay, let's bring those guys back. I think had things been differently, he would have never made Three from Hell. The headcanon I keep in my head to try and at least kind of be content with it is that it's not really a story as far as the Firefly family. To me, it's kind of just like a fun little what if movie. Like sometimes you'll see like a movie and then there's like a comic book offshoot of it that's not really canon, but it's just kind of like a for fun, like, oh, in this we see Michael Myers fight fucking Superman, or just something that you would never see in the movies. That's right. Kind of how I have to tell myself. Obviously, Three from Hell is the worst of the 3. I can enjoy it. Like if someone ever puts it on, I can watch it. It's fine. But
well, like we said, him changing the script completely last minute because of Sid Haig. I think I would have loved to see what it would have been. I would love to get my hands on the script of what it was before. I don't even know if you can get your hands on that. I doubt it. But like I would love to have seen, because I bet you it would have been a whole lot better. And to change a movie like that, I mean, it's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, I've never been able to find like an original script for Three from Hell. But yeah, shit. All the way back to Black Betty and Freebird, it wouldn't be anywhere near the same if it was any other song than Freebird. It would not be. I think it's one of the greatest endings, not even just in horror, but just like in movies. Like,
oh, absolutely, I agree. And that track, one of the best movie soundtracks of all time. I really, really agree with that because, I mean, you just got all the classics. And I was reading something about the soundtrack, and they said he wanted to do like, put more Southern rock in there, and like he did, the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, like it just fit well with that. Like you said, that kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe, like the desert, even the house, when they pull them going through the sewer tunnels, just I don't know, it just had like a Southern gritty Texas type vibe to it, and that's what that movie embodies.
It's not even just the fact that it's a good soundtrack full of good songs. They actually contribute to the movie. Like they all have that Southern fried they're all southern rock. It's all like borderline. Some of it's borderline country music or straight up country music. It was like perfectly like it's one thing to make a movie and just say I like this song, so put this song in the scene. Sometimes it doesn't fit, but every song in that movie not only fit perfectly, but made actually like contributed to the movie basically.
Yeah, it complimented every scene for sure. When I
That
and when I, not to keep bringing up the beginning when Allman Brothers played, but when I first time I saw that and that Midnight Rider played, I said, "Holy shit! Like this is going to be a good movie." Because you just know when you throw together a song like that that complements a scene, you know you're in for something good.
it's all a perfect choice. It's one of my favorite things. At some point, I want to make a long form video where I actually like record the audio and like it's not live and I upload it. Where I just talking about Rob Zombie's filmography in general and his music choices is like one of the top three best things about like without the music, his movies are not as good as they are, and that's obviously just him being such a big fan of music and rock and roll in general. Every movie is just like perfectly casted with the songs that he picks for him.
And that's where it sets him apart from other directors because not many other film directors are rock stars. I mean, and a successful rock star. I mean, White Zombie and Rob Zombie, like fucking, that's amazing music. And how often are you gifted with your director having such great music taste? That's rare. You usually have to get some guy to put together some soundtrack. Uh, that's where he has the leg up on the competition. He's just got good taste. He's a cool guy.
It's similar to, and we'll wrap up here pretty soon. It's similar to Easy Rider. It kind of makes me think of these are probably
I'll
songs
say
that
that.
Rob did pull out of his personal soundtracks. That he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, I'll check this out." Um, all right, ending notes, final notes. I forgot. I wanted to mention it at the beginning, but I forgot to, so I'm mentioning it here. After seeing House of a Thousand Corpses and then The Devil's Rejects, no one can ever say Rob Zombie's not a quick learner. Like the amount of progress he made as a director from Corpses to Rejects is like it's almost ridiculous when you watch them. And they came out 2 years apart. So he releases House of a Thousand Corpses and then goes straight into producing The Devil's Rejects. And it's like, oh, in the span of one movie, he learned how to make a movie 100 times better. Like as much as I love Corpses, yeah, there's no denying The Devil's Rejects is just like an overall better made movie as far as like producing, directing, cinematography, editing. It's just a better movie in like technical terms. So yeah, it's actually wild to see when you watch those movies back to back. You're like, oh, he learned everything like just like that. Made one movie and instantly got it all down, and then goes on to fucking Halloween, which I'm excited to do. We got to do Halloween at some point.
Me too, for sure. Hell yeah. If we're keeping the same theme, I mean, it don't matter to me, but you were talking about doing like a non-Rob Zombie movie and in between and then break it up. I mean, I'm cool with whatever.
No, I want to do that. So I was gonna say, what do you want to do next?
Oh, man, I don't even know. We talked about Silence of the Lambs. We talked about some Kubrick movies, American Psycho. I mean, I'll let you pick, man. Because so far you've picked some good ones. So
You know what I'm gonna do? I'll do a poll on the Instagram. I'll see if I can get some votes. I want to do. I'll put up Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus Silence of the Lambs.
yeah,
Whichever wins will go first, but whichever loses will come after Halloween.
yeah,
So
hell yeah.
no matter what, we'll get to them.
That would be doing a poll would be cool to see what like people really want to see. I absolutely love Silence of the Lambs. That is probably my favorite movie of all time. Like I can recite that movie. Like I don't like people that just sit there and like recite lines from a movie when you're watching it. Like, but that movie I can't fucking help myself but do that. Like, it's just like I don't know. Everything about it was amazing. It's the psychological aspect, and I like Ted Levine too as an actor, and him being Buffalo Bill. I thought was like he should have won Best Supporting Actor, but he didn't. And Anthony Hopkins is a fucking genius. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of the best horror movies of all time, 1974. And dude, with the budget they had, I mean, and this little hand cam, I mean, just fucking wild, dude. Great movie. But yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be cool. And then we'll do another Rob Zombie movie after that. And I'd like to join you guys on a Wednesday too. For I feel bad that I missed the one I was supposed to join with you and Annie, but talking other stuff other than movies would be cool. I mean, I'm cool, whatever. She actually mentioned you guys were trying to talk about like ghost stories or something. I don't know if you already did, but I have a pretty good story for my first house that I bought that I'm pretty sure was haunted. So
No, so we got you last Wednesday. We never even got to that topic, and then we brought on another buddy from the South. Actually, he's just this young kid. I think he's like 21. And he said he has a ghost story. We never got to it though. So we were thinking what we might want to do on Wednesday is bring you on in the beginning of the show for like the first half hour to hour. We do the ghost story, and then after we get you out of here, and then we'll bring Jordan on if he wants to come on. If he doesn't want to come on or can't come on, we have you the whole time. I want to start doing that on Wednesdays. Annie made a joke that it'd be like a talk show, which I would really like to do. Like, oh, here's our first guest, and then get him on, and then here's our second guest, and then yeah, no, Wednesday. We talked about doing the ghost story thing, so we'll definitely hit you
yeah,
up for that one.
that'd be cool. It's a pretty good story. I mean, it's not like change your life story, but it's definitely an experience that I had for sure. I've always believed in that stuff.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
I damn near think it's undeniable. I mean, if you're paying attention, there's things going on.
people are ignorant that don't think, oh, that's just your imagination. No, motherfucker. Like what I seen. I wish I would have saved the camera footage. I'm gonna have to see if I could. I have my broken iPhone, and I got to see if I could upload the videos from my security camera. Like it would be perfect to play for people to see, and you'd be like, holy fuck, dude.
Before we start doing what we did last week and doing a whole thing, I will mention one last thing about the ghost thing. I remember some friends of mine that had been to like other countries. They kind of came back and told me the reason Americans are ignorant to like the supernatural is because of like kind of like our culture. They said when you go to other countries, as soon as you get there, like you can feel it. You can kind of feel that you can feel like the spirituality. Whereas here, you've got all these like Hollywood movies about ghosts, and it's all kind of like Ghost Hunters is on TV and Ghost Adventures is kind of just like a thing. Whereas other countries respect it and acknowledge it, and
Yeah, it's,
so it made a lot of sense to me.
yeah, like Day of the Dead, all that shit. Like even other like cultures that's part of their culture. They believe that your spirit is definitely doesn't die with you. A lot of like American culture, it's just like, oh, that's it for you. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, shit. Let's hang it up. I know you said you got work in the morning, so
Yeah, unfortunately, I always got to be up at like 5 o'clock. It fucking blows. So this worked good actually because it's a little earlier. And yeah, I appreciate it again, man. It's always a good time. Always fun talking with you. So looking forward to it again.
right on. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I'll put up that poll. I'll see how it goes, and then I'll let you know. We'll be talking before then, but
Sure.
I'll click you out of here. I'm gonna say bye to the camera, and then yeah, I'll probably we'll end up talking soon. Within like the next few hours, I'm sure.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you.
Right on,
Yeah.
man.
Have a good night.
You too. All right. I'm all alone now. I'm not gonna be here that long. I don't really know why I'm even here. The only reason I'm sitting here by myself is because when I end the stream on the streaming service that I use, I notice it somehow ends early. It's very strange. So like I'll sit here and I'll say, "All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later." I hit end stream, and then I go back to the YouTube video, and it stops like before I even say the "All right, guys, thanks for whatever." It's super weird. So I don't want it to cut off before the guest leaves. If it's going to cut off, I'm fine with it cutting me off. But if I'm going to have a guest, I want him to be on the whole time. Devil's Rejects, that was cool. Uh, definitely one of Rob Zombie's best movies. Next week, it sounds like we're either going to do Silence of the Lambs or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm going to do a poll on the Disco Acid Cult Instagram. Disco Acid Cult Instagram. There it is right there. It's probably going to be in a story though, so if you miss it within the next 24 hours, it's going to be tough shit. I have a feeling. I think I know which one will win. I'm actually not sure. I would guess Texas Chainsaw Massacre will win with the followers on that page. but I've never talked about Silence of the Lambs on that page before, so that could come out as like an underdog and take it. But no matter what, we're gonna do both movies. This is just to determine which one we're gonna do first. So hopefully next Saturday we do either Texas Chainsaw or Silence, and then the Saturday after that we resume Rob Zombie. We're gonna get to Rob Zombie's Halloween. Um, Rob Zombie's Halloween is super interesting to me because I think it's undeniably like the peak of Rob Zombie's Hollywood career. You know, he has two peaks, obviously, because he's been a rock star and a director. His musical peak is Hellbilly Deluxe, and his Hollywood peak is Halloween. To me, Rob Zombie's Halloween is kind of, you know, that is him firmly planting his feet in Hollywood and saying, I have arrived. There's the interviews with him where he's got the cool jacket on and like the aviator sunglasses, and he looks Hollywood. He no longer has the dreads in his hair; it's just long hair, and you know, it's definitely. I think it's his biggest budget out of all his movies. He got the biggest budget for Halloween. It's definitely the most profitable. It held a box office record for many, many years. I think it was like the Labor Day weekend. It was like Labor Day weekend box office, and it stayed on top until some Disney movie came out in like 2019 or 2020 or something. So it's definitely his most successful movie. Yeah, that'll be fun to talk about. I've been seeing some people in and out of the viewership here. I don't know. No one ever commented, which is fine. Usually when we're talking movies, I try to ignore the comments. So, whoever you guys are, thanks for checking in. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next week.